The alarms of Throne Station's Sovereign did not merely ring. They howled, vibrating through metal corridors and resonant halls carved by 10 millennia of Galactic Concord authority. Every being aboard felt the tremor of fear ripple through the station's artificial gravity fields. Inside the Central Command Nexus, Senior Monitor Cavalier froze mid-stride as the main holographic array reconfigured itself into a red-washed emergency grid. Her 4 eyes dilated, focused sharply, and narrowed in disbelief. "Rerun the scan," she ordered, forcing steadiness into her voice even as dread crawled across her chest like cold metal claws. The young technician beside her, barely out of academy age, rapidly tapped his interface. His antenna twitched violently. "Monitor, readings verified. This isn't sensor noise. A vessel has appeared inside the core zone. 0 jump signature. 0 fold echo. No dimensional displacement. It just arrived." Cavalia's heart jolted once, painfully. Nothing had ever penetrated the core without being detected years in advance. The core was the pride of the Concord, a fortress built from the combined ingenuity of 847 species, layered with every known defensive protocol and early warning system. But the impossible now hung directly in front of them. A ship, immense, dark, silent, floating a mere 3,000 kilometers from the Sovereign itself. Enhanced visual. The display zoomed, revealing a Leviathan coated in matte black plating that seemed to devour light rather than reflect it. Its surface lacked the usual ornamentation of advanced starships. No glowing conduits, no visible ports, no heat radiators. Instead, the design looked almost primitive but paradoxically advanced in ways that made no sense. To Cavalier, it felt like looking at something built by a civilization whose engineering philosophy sat far outside conventional frameworks. Before she could comment, the Convocation Hall's communication feed activated across every console. A sea of diplomats appeared, hundreds of species shouting over one another, each voice layered in panic. "This is an intrusion of the highest order. Activate the dreadnoughts. Seal the core. This is a direct threat." High Chancellor Morvax, a massive krent with silver armor scales that shimmered under the chamber lights, thrust his primary arms upward. "Order! Order!" The uproar dulled, though tension still vibrated beneath every word spoken. Ambassador Zelther, 3 heads speaking in eerie synchronization, leaned forward. "A ship materializing in our core, without warning, is an act of war. We must assume hostile intent." Before Morvax could answer, every screen flickered. A transmission had been received. One line of text. In old Galactic standard, a language long obsolete. Humanity requests an audience. Silence dropped like a falling star. A single word spread to the chamber in a whispering wave. Humanity. Cavalier had already pulled historical records before Morvax even issued the command. Her claws tapped rapidly as she navigated archives that hadn't been touched in centuries. Species 447 Beta. Origin, Sol System. Status, Pre-FTL. Classification, Protected/Quarantined under Observation Protocol 17. They were supposed to still be developing basic spaceflight, Cavalier murmured. Last recorded observation said they hadn't mastered control fusion. That was 3 centuries ago. Yet the ship outside dwarfed every standard metric of technological progress. The vessel began drifting closer, not accelerating aggressively, but approaching with slow, deliberate precision, as though announcing, "We are not here to hide. We are here to be seen. Deploy defense formations," Morvax ordered. "But no one fires unless attacked. I want every sensor lock we can generate." Within minutes, 50 Concord warships encircled the intruding vessel. These were Titans, ships capable of tearing apart moons. Yet Cavalier noticed something that made her throat tighten. "Their ship isn't responding," she whispered. "No shields. No weapon warm-up. It's as if we're beneath their notice." A fleet commander's voice cut through the comms. Their tone was unerringly shaken. "Chancellor, our targeting systems can't maintain a lock. It isn't jamming us. It's like we can't focus on it. Our systems lose track the moment we attempt resolution." Cavalier confirmed on her own displays. The ship blurred at the edges, clear yet ungraspable, like a star glimpsed through heat ripples. Then it stopped, exactly 100 kilometers from the primary docking array. The vessel rotated, revealing what appeared to be a docking interface, an invitation. The galaxy's most powerful station waited. The unknown ship waited. Morvax inhaled deeply. Send a message. Tell them their request for an audience is granted. What humanity wanted, no one knew. But whatever it was, the galaxy was about to learn that the age of unquestioned Concord rule had ended. The Grand Convocation Hall, normally a thunderous arena of political pride, had fallen into a suffocating, unnatural quiet. Representatives from nearly 900 species sat in wide concentric rings, each one waiting, dreading, anticipating the arrival of the visitor whose ship had unsettled the galaxy's oldest government. High Chancellor Morvax stood at the center platform, towering above most other beings. Despite his imposing presence, even he felt an unfamiliar tightness coil in his chest. For the first time in centuries, the Concordat did not know what it faced. The doors hissed open. A figure stepped through. It was surprisingly small, humanoid bipedal, wearing a pressure suit that blended archaic plating with technology none could identify. As the figure moved, the suit's helmet retracted, revealing a face shockingly similar to several convergent evolution species, yet somehow distinctly alien in its expression. The human's eyes were what struck the room silent. Not rage, not fear, something heavier. Something like the weight of history, carried quietly. "I am Admiral Chen Wei," the human announced, voice clear and steady in flawless modern galactic standard, representative of Earth and all human colonies. The word colonies rippled through the audience like a shockwave. Ambassador Zelther's three heads spoke sharply, the echo unnerving. "Colonies? Your species was classified as pre-FTL. You should not have left your planet." Chen turned toward him with a calm, unreadable expression. "And yet here I stand." Morvax gestured with a lower arm. "State your purpose, Admiral." Chen reached into her suit and activated a small device. It floated upward, projecting a massive hologram in the center of the hall. The first image froze every being in place. Human ships, dozens of them, destroyed, shredded hulls drifting through space, recorded across multiple centuries. "For 800 years, Chen said quietly, my people attempted peaceful expansion, colony transports, research vessels, deep space pioneers. Every time we crossed an invisible boundary outside our home system, we were annihilated. The hologram cycled brutally through wreckage, broken habitats, shattered engines, black box recordings of terrified voices cut abruptly short. A murmur rose. Fear, anger, disbelief. Kavalith, watching from her monitor post, cross-checked the data. Her heart sank. Every destroyed vessel matched activation logs from classified Concord defense platforms. This cannot be," she whispered. Chun continued, voice growing colder. "We didn't know who was killing us. We only knew we were being contained, caged. Someone decided humanity must never leave Sol." The hologram shifted again, this time revealing unmistakably Concord technology. Weapon satellites arranged in a vast grid around Earth system, complete with energy signatures and authorization codes. 7 founding species had signed off on the deployment. The hall erupted into chaos. We were not informed. The protocols forbade interference. This must be fabricated. Who gave the order? Chen waited until the uproar thinned. We recovered fragments. We rebuilt destroyed black boxes. We studied the pattern. And eventually, after centuries, we discovered the truth. She turned her gaze directly toward Morvax. "You imprisoned us. Without warning. Without dialogue. Without trial." Morvax's scales bristled. "Admiral, even if such actions occurred centuries ago, historical decisions made under diplomatic immunity cannot." Chen raised a hand slightly. "Chancellor, you misunderstand." Her voice softened, but her eyes hardened like forged metal. "We are not here to prosecute ancient crimes. We are here because humanity wants answers. We want transparency, and we want the truth recorded, not buried under classified archives. A wave of silence washed over the chamber. Chun deactivated the hologram. Humanity spent 8 centuries fighting an enemy we could not see. We built our first starships, assuming our destroyer, waited outside our doorstep. We developed defenses without any knowledge of the galaxy. And when we finally broke free, she paused. We did not come with vengeance. We came with questions. Zelther hissed, "How did you break through the cordon?" Chun gave a faint smile devoid of warmth. We stopped trying to pass a boundary. Her next words fell like a meteor strike. We learned how to step through reality. Gasps erupted, even from species with no lungs. No hyperspace. No wormholes. No fold space. We simply appear where we choose to be. The implications shatter the Hall's remaining confidence. If true, no defense system in existence could stop humanity from appearing anywhere, anytime. Chen's tone softened, but the message behind it was sharp as a blade. We have no desire for war, but we will not accept silence or excuses. The Concordat will explain how this happened. She stepped back as the doors opened for her departure. The most powerful political body in the galaxy watched her leave, unable to deny a dawning truth. Humanity had come not as conquerors, but as a force the galaxy could not ignore. The High Chancellor's private chamber had never held so many high-ranking delegates at once. The air shimmered with stress pheromones, heat signatures, and the electrical hum of translators struggling to keep up with the barrage of shouting. Morvac stood at the head of the table, fighting to retain authority as 50 of the most influential species in the Concordat hurled accusations and frantic strategies at each other. We cannot bow to their demands. They accuse us of crimes we did not commit personally. If those records are real, the Concordat is finished. They must have faked the data. No one could fake that level of detail. No one. Just when the argument reached its breaking point, every comm device in the room chimed simultaneously. A galactic-wide broadcast, sent from humanity. Morvax's hands trembled slightly as he opened the file. Every representative fell silent as the chamber's wall screen came alive with dense packets of information, hundreds of years' worth of classified data. But these weren't records about humanity. They were records about the Concordat itself. Trade manipulations, corruption logs, observation protocols repeatedly weaponized. Species denied membership based on falsified reports. Covert sabotage of developing civilizations. And most damning of all, evidence that the passive monitoring systems similar to those used on humanity had been deployed on 17 other species. Cavalith, who had joined the emergency meeting only minutes earlier, felt a cold sickness spread through her. How? How did they obtain this? She whispered. A smaller, feathered diplomat answered shakily. These files were protected behind 7 layers of Concord-level encryption. Another voice cut in, almost in awe. They weren't hacking us. Cavalith inhaled sharply. The realization hit her like gravity spike. They've been watching us, monitoring us, for centuries. Murmurs rippled through the room. Impossible. No species could observe us without detection. They must have infiltrated our deep networks ages ago. But everyone knew the truth, even if they refused to speak it. Humanity had been studying the Concordat far longer than the Concordat had been studying humanity. The galaxy's most powerful alliance felt suddenly, horrifyingly naked. Within hours, the political structure that had lasted 10,000 years began to fracture. Minor species, long marginalized, finally possessed proof of the injustices they had endured. Some threatened revolt. Others demanded reparations. Entire sectors declared temporary independence. And then humanity made their next move. Reports arrived from every sector of the galaxy. Panic-filled, contradictory, yet all saying the same thing. Human ships were appearing, not arriving, not jumping, not emerging from fold space. Appearing in orbit of neutral worlds, inside military sectors, near trade hubs, outside government embassies. Each appearance was brief, long enough to be noticed, recorded, and understood. Humanity could reach anywhere. Anywhere. Not a single weapon was fired. Not a single challenge was issued. Only a message, identical in every system. Observe, We do not threaten. We demonstrate. But not everyone understood the wisdom and restraint. The Zelthar Empire, the most aggressive of the founding species, answered the demonstration with fury. Their leadership denounced humanity, claiming weakness within the Concord's ranks. They assembled a battle fleet, 37 frontline warships, including dreadnoughts capable of cracking continents. They challenged humanity openly. If the humans wish to be recognized as equals, Fleet Commander Zelthos declared, let them survive a true test of strength. Only one human ship responded, a destroyer-class vessel, small by Concord standards, lightly armed, externally unremarkable. The Zelthar fleet surrounded it like predators closing in on prey. Last chance of surrender, Zelthos barked. The human ship remained silent. Fire warning shot. A blast blazed across space, meant to miss, meant to intimidate. The human ship shifted, not dodging, not thrusting, not maneuvering. It simply wasn't in the same coordinates anymore. Zelthos clenched his fists. Enough. All ships opened fire. What followed would become one of the most studied battles in galactic history. A maelstrom of plasma, particle beams, missiles, kinetic slugs, an avalanche of destruction. Not one struck the human ship. Not one. Sensors insisted hits were landing, yet visually nothing connected. The human vessel drifted untouched, as if existing half a breath outside the battlefield. Then space began to distort. Gravity wells formed and vanished, redirecting Zelthar ships into new trajectories. Fleets that had trained for centuries found themselves spinning, colliding, firing upon their own allies. Missiles rerouted. Plasma blasts turned full circle. The humans didn't fire. They simply changed the battlefield around them. In 7 minutes, the mighty Zelthar fleet lay broken, crippled ships drifting in silent ruin, while the human destroyer remained immaculate. No casualties among the humans. Thousands alive, but humiliated among the Zelthar. The galaxy watched. Humanity had rewritten the definition of warfare in less than 8 minutes. By the time the battle footage ended, the Chancellor's chamber was silent once more, not from unity, but from the chilling realization that the Concordat was no longer the greatest power in the galaxy. Humanity had surpassed them, and done so without shedding blood. The galaxy spiraled toward war with a speed that stunned even the most seasoned diplomats. Within 3 days of the Zelthar defeat, the political system that had ruled for 10,000 years was crumbling faster than anyone could stabilize it. 6 major species, fearful, angry, and unwilling to accept a new balance of power, formed a breakaway alliance called the Preservation Pact. Their message was blunt. Humanity will not dictate the galaxy's future. We will not bow. Ambassador Zeltha delivered a broadcast brimming with defiance. We shaped the civilization. We forged the Concordat. And we will not surrender authority to a species that only recently crawled from its cradle. But the smaller species heard something very different. They heard a desperate elite clinging to a throne built on centuries of exploitation. Within hours, over 300 minor civilizations issued public statements supporting humanity's call for equal representation and accountability. Throne stations shook with political earthquakes long before the Preservation Pact mobilized its fleets. Cavalith watched reports scroll across her station monitors, each one worse than the last. The Pact is moving their armadas, she informed the High Chancellor. 2,000 warships preparing coordinated strikes, half heading toward Sol, half toward Throne Station. Morvac stared out the viewport at the quiet silhouette of the indomitable, humanity's first contact ship. This is not a border dispute, he murmured. This is a war for the shape of the future. Cavalith's voice grew tight. Chancellor, I do not think the humans intend to fight this war in the way we expect. She was right. The first Pact fleet jumped into the Sol system, expecting a defensive network of traditional installations. Shields, orbital guns, fleets of warships. What they found instead made their sensors short-circuit. The solar system had been transformed, not fortified, repurposed. Planets had been restructured, asteroids disassembled. The raw material of 8 entire worlds had been woven into a vast network of orbital rings, shipyards, foundries, and manufacturing webs, thousands of interconnected structures glowing with organized precision. Impossible, whispered the Pax fleet commander. His tactical officer's mandibles clicked in terror. These structures, they're producing ships. Now, sir, they're building in real time. On the displays, swarms of microscopic construction drones moved in shimmering clouds, so dense in number they resemble metallic nebulae. They assembled engines, hulls, reactors, weapon arrays, all in minutes. A destroyer grew from nothing in the time it took the fleet to reorient its formation. A cruiser took shape in less than an hour. Entire task forces formed before the Pack commander's eyes. Humanity had not built ships. They had grown them. The Pack fleet hesitated, a crack in their confidence, a hesitation that humans had engineered intentionally. Meanwhile, the second Pact Armada, also 2,000 ships strong, closed on Throne Station. Human vessels appear between them and their target, only a few dozen, not enough to win a conventional battle. But humanity had no intention of fighting conventionally. The first human ships didn't fire weapons. Instead, they deployed a glittering haze of microscopic specks. Micro-drones, Kavlith breathed, watching in astonishment. Billions of them. What are they doing? Morvax asked. Everything. The drones infiltrated packed vessels, slipping through shield harmonics, sliding into maintenance vents, weaving into engine compartments, weapon coils, targeting matrices. Within minutes, weapons went silent. Reactors shut down without detonating. Engines powered off safely. Entire dreadnoughts drifted without firing a single bolt. The packed warships weren't destroyed. They were deactivated, as gently as a child turning off a toy. In an hour, the battle ended. 2,000 elite warships floated powerless, while their crews sat uninjured, bewildered, and utterly defeated. Every species in the galaxy watched live broadcasts of the impossible. Humanity had neutralized the largest fleet in known history without killing a single living being. Admiral Chen appeared on all packed ship displays, her expression calm, almost mournful. Your crews are unharmed. Your vessels will be returned once this crisis resolves. We could have annihilated you, but we chose a different path. Her eyes hardened, not with anger but conviction. You came to enforce an old order. We came to show you a new one. The age of conquest ends today. In the High Chancellor's private chamber, Morvax's decision became clear. He turned to his advisors, most shaken, some openly despairing. Send a message to every Concordat member. Emergency assembly. We are dissolving the old structure. A new government must be born. But the Pact, an aide protested. The Pact no longer has the ability to dictate anything. Morvax said, the humans have defeated them without bloodshed. They've shown us the future. It is time we accept it. Humanity hadn't won through brutality. They had won because they were strong enough not to use it. 3 months after the fall of the Preservation Pact's fleets, the galaxy gathered in a place that had once symbolized absolute authority. The former Grand Convocation Hall had been dismantled. In its place stood Unity Hall, a circular chamber with no elevated thrones, no grand podiums, no symbol of dominance. All species sat at the same level. Kavlith, now serving as one of the transitional coordinators, stood to the side, observing the hollow displays as the final votes poured in. Species large and small, long feared and long ignored, each cast their decision. The tally screen flickered, numbers stabilizing. High Chancellor Morvax announced the results in a voice that carried both exhaustion and hope. The Galactic Federation Charter is ratified. The chamber erupted. Some cheered, some sighed in relief. Some sat stiffly, swallowing pride and history. Even the Preservation Pact delegates, though refusing to applaud, did not walk out. They had seen what happened when they tried to resist the future by force. And unlike the old Concordat, the new Federation left no room for coercion or elite dominance. The galaxy had changed. Permanently. Humanity's influence had shaped the moment, but they had not claimed it for themselves. Admiral Chunwei sat quietly within the human delegation circle, flanked by Captain Rodriguez of the Indomitable and Dr. Sarah Kim, Earth's leading diplomat. While others celebrated, Chen simply watched. We actually did it, Rodriguez whispered. A whole new government, without firing a single lethal shot. Chen gave a soft exhale. We didn't save the galaxy. We just gave it a choice it had avoided for 10,000 years. Dr. Kim smirked, poetic as always. But Chen's eyes drifted distant. She was thinking not of victory, but of what it meant to carry 8 centuries of suffering and not let bitterness shape the outcome. Later, as festivities continued, Chen retreated to a quiet observation room overlooking Earth's blue arc. She stood alone for a long time, letting the sight soothe her. She had not seen home in 2 years. A soft chime sounded behind her. "Admiral Chen," Morvac said respectfully as he entered. The Chancellor looked older, yet lighter, than he had during their first encounter. Chen nodded to him. "Chancellor." "I wanted to speak without an audience," Morvac said, stepping beside her. "There is something that has troubled me since your arrival, something I have been afraid to ask." Chen waited. "When your ship appeared from nowhere, we assumed you had only recently broken free from the old observation grid." His silver scales tightened. "But your technology, your coordination, your comm, these things take centuries." His voice lowered. "How long have your people truly been capable of starflight?" Chen held his gaze for a long moment. Then she answered, 237 years. Morvax's breath hitched. "You were free for over 2 centuries, and you didn't come for us." "We debated it," Chen admitted quietly. "Every generation argued. Some wanted revenge. Others wanted proof of our enemy's identity. Some begged to strike first, catch the Concorde at Unprepared. But you waited," Morvax whispered. Chen's voice softened. "Because we saw what we were becoming. Rage is unifying, Chancellor. It binds a civilization together, and it almost bound us into something monstrous." She stepped toward the window. "We had to ask ourselves, what kind of species did we want to be? Liberators? Conquerors? Victims? Tyrants?" She paused. "Or something new?" Morvac sank into a chair, overwhelmed. "Your people held back for centuries to ensure you would not become us." "To ensure," Chen corrected, "that when we finally stepped into Galaxy, we did not bring the same darkness that imprisoned us." He closed his eyes, humbled. "And if we had refused the Federation? If we had chosen war?" Chen turned, her expression calm but firm. "We would have disabled your armies, dismantled your weapons, ended the conflict without bloodshed. And if you still refused, if the only path forward was genocide—" She paused. "We would have left." Morvac stared. "Left? Left the galaxy?" "Yes," Chen said simply. "Better to abandon a poisoned future than become architects of slaughter. Better to begin elsewhere than to become the very nightmare we escaped." Morvac shook his head slowly. "Your species is either impossibly wise or impossibly naive." "Maybe both," Chen said with a faint smile. "But we learned something in those centuries of isolation. The true measure of civilization is how it treats those weaker than itself." She walked toward the exit. "And for the first time in galactic history, the strongest species is choosing to share power, not claim it." Morvax's final question caught her at the door. "Will you share your technology?" Chen glanced back. "We already have. Every breakthrough we made is part of the Federation Charter. Any species can study it. We aren't building an empire, Chancellor. We're building a future." When she left, Morvax remained staring through the window at the stars. Once symbols of dominance, now symbols of possibility. Humanity hadn't just changed the galaxy. They had challenged it to become better than it had ever been. 6 months after the Federation's founding, a quiet convoy entered Earth's orbit. It carried something once used to cage an entire species: the network of weaponized satellites that had surrounded Sol for 8 centuries. Now, under supervision of human engineers and dozens of Federation observers, the satellites were dismantled. Their armored cores were repurposed into structural frames. Their weapons, once symbols of fear, were melted into memorial plates. Their control nodes became museum halls. Floating above the blue planet they once imprisoned, the pieces formed a museum of patience. Visitors came from every corner of the galaxy: soldiers, scholars, diplomats, students. The opening exhibit displayed a simple inscription etched into folded metal: "So we remember what fear can build, and what hope can remake." It became the most visited site in the Federation within weeks. The galaxy itself transformed faster than anyone had predicted. Worlds starved of resources under the Concordat suddenly flourished through shared technology. Formerly oppressed species gained full representation and began pushing innovations no one had known they were capable of. Trade boomed. Diplomacy replaced coercion. Conflicts once considered inevitable simply dissolved when equality replaced hierarchy. Even the Preservation Pact, the 6 defiant major species who had once tried to resist, slowly returned to the table, at first with bitterness, then with pragmatism, and eventually with reluctant respect. They had been defeated without shame, without violence, without humiliation. Their fleets were returned intact. Their people were unharmed. Their cultures preserved. They were not conquered. They were confronted with a better way. Pride took time to heal. But even they could not deny the newfound prosperity. And at the heart of the Federation's rapid evolution was a principle that humanity had carved out of suffering. Those who have the power to destroy others have an even greater responsibility to protect them. It became known as the first ethical mandate of the Federation. As the galaxy reorganized, humanity quietly stepped back from the spotlight. Admiral Chinwei, the face of humanity's arrival, the calm force behind the peaceful revolution, retired 2 years after the Federation's founding. Her resignation surprised many, but those who knew her saw the exhaustion she carried beneath her composed exterior. She returned to Earth, purchasing a small house near a remote ocean cliff. The locals treated her as any other citizen, and she blended back into anonymity with surprising ease. She never wrote memoirs. She refused interviews. She declined awards. History remembered her more strongly than she ever tried to remember herself. When asked why she avoided the spotlight, Chin gave the same answer to every curious visitor. We did what needed to be done, nothing more. She never elaborated. The galaxy created 100 legends around her silence, some heroic, some mystical, some exaggerated beyond reason, but all carried a grain of truth. Chun had never sought power. She had sought justice and then chosen restraint. Decades passed. The former Preservation Pact species integrated fully into the Federation, contributing their vast knowledge of energy manipulation, starship engineering, and diplomacy, talents the old Concordat had smothered beneath layers of hierarchy. Smaller species blossomed, creating art, science, and cultural exchanges that reshaped the galactic framework. New colonies were founded with representatives from multiple species living side by side. The Federation wasn't perfect, no government ever was, but it was fair in ways the Concordat had never attempted. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy felt like a shared home instead of a pyramid of dominion, and the shockwaves of humanity's arrival, once feared, became the foundation for unity. They hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had challenged it to become something more. Years later, nursery schools across hundreds of worlds taught a simplified version of the events. Humanity appeared. The Concordat trembled. But instead of war, the humans brought truth. Instead of conquest, they brought choice. Instead of domination, they brought cooperation. Teachers emphasized one lesson: that true strength was not the ability to crush enemies, but the wisdom to choose a different path. Admiral Chen's legacy lived not in statues or monuments, but in the way children from species with no shared ancestry spoke the same simple proverb: strength with mercy builds futures. It was whispered by younglings with 6 limbs, spoken by hatchlings in crystalline nests, recited by humans and non-humans alike. Across the galaxy, those words were known as humanity's gift. And it all began with one dark ship appearing out of nowhere, not to bring destruction, but to offer the galaxy a chance to redefine civilization. Humanity had arrived, and in doing so, they taught the stars what it meant to be truly civilized.